Why is this company as it now is more valuable in three parts than it was in one?
Well, David, I think we've got a roadmap over the next 2 years to prove that out. But I think the board and the leadership team are firmly of the view that on three distinct bottoms, these businesses will be more focused. There'll be a higher, greater level of accountability. We should have sharper capital allocation, more strategic flexibility. And frankly, I think it's going to be good for the team as well, right? The team that we have today, certainly the team that we'll build over time. We all know that today's talent markets are more mission and purpose driven. We'll stand up 2 new boards full of strong directors with domain expertise. And I think we'll end up with investor bases focused on these pure plays, investors that are probably underinvested in GE today. You put all that together, it's clear this is the best path for us to unlock and create value going forward.
Larry, I suspect you've learned from bitter experience. I have that there's no such thing as a free lunch. You have to pay something to get anything. And obviously there are some benefits that we'll go through that you think you'll see. But are you giving up something in the so-called S word, synergy? Because it was thought that General Electric did have some benefits. For example, in some of their research work, that maybe research you did on new hydrogen-powered turbines would help you in aviation. Are you going to give up some of that?
David, the GE team's heard from me for the last 3 years that I will bet on the benefits of focus every day, far more than the often illusory benefits that come from synergies. Now, we certainly enjoy those synergies today in certain places, but more and more we've been running the company on a decentralized basis, not as one GE, not as even the 4 reporting segments, but the 30 P&Ls that deal with customers that compete in the markets every single day. So if there are synergies that we enjoy today, we'll work to continue those, of course, but the vast majority of the benefits here will come from focus.
So that's why you're doing it. Why are you doing it now? What about the timing now? Why not a year ago, 2 years ago, or a year from now, or 2 years from now?
Well, we've had a lot of work to do to take care of the balance sheet. We've reduced our debt load by over $75 billion over the last 3 years. We also needed to strengthen our core operations. And if you look at what we'll do this year in terms of our adjusted free cash flow, should come in around $5 billion. I think those 2 proof points needed to be in hand before we could even entertain a question like this. It certainly helps being on the other side, or increasingly on the other side of the pandemic, but also our customers want GE at its best, focused on them, whether it be our utility customers coming out of COP26 dealing with the energy transition, our airframers and our airline customers dealing with the post-COVID recovery in that space, let alone everything that's happening in precision healthcare.
Now, you're not doing it all in one fell swoop. As I understand it, you're going to do some next year and then you're going to put off some to the year after. Why is it that with power, as I understand, you're going to put that off a little bit? You're not ready to do that quite yet.
We will take it in 2 steps. The first step will come in early 23, where we'll spin our healthcare business off. That's the business that's performing the best and is probably the most ready to go. We'll take the time between now and early 24, when we spin our renewables and power businesses, to improve their core operations and hopefully get a little bit more tailwind in that business, again, in the wake of all of the climate initiatives that are out there today.
I think I know you well enough to know you thought about every possibility, every permutation, but take me through one in particular, power and renewables. Not everybody's doing it that way. You could have gone the other way and say, let's just have more traditional power business. Let's have the renewables because that's the new growth business. Why did you decide to put those 2 together?
Well, and keep in mind, David, that we actually are putting 3 together because we're putting our digital business in with that group as well. The customer will always set you free. And I think in this instance, our customers, both in terms of the utilities and the power generators around the world, but frankly also regulators and even legislators, they want GE to bring a whole house solution. So whether it be onshore or offshore wind, what we do in natural gas turbines, in addition to the grid, all are pieces of the puzzle, all need to be brought to bear on this climate challenge. And keeping that together, being able to integrate those solutions for customers really is, I think, the primary reason we want to go forward with these businesses together.
What's going to happen to the General Electric name? What's going to happen to the logo? I mean, we all know it's been there forever. Who's going to get that?
Well, I think everybody wants to make sure they hang on to their part of the brand, right? The Monogram was recently evaluated at nearly $20 billion of brand value. It means a tremendous amount in each one of these markets. So we don't have a definitive brand plan today. We'll work through that as we will work through other questions in the months to come. But rest assured, every business will share the GE heritage.
So one way to put it, what you're doing is unscrambling the omelet. So you've got an awful lot of things to work out over the next 2 or 3 years, no question about it. But one thing that has been a significant factor for you and for General before you were there is this legacy sort of healthcare long-term contracts. Where are those going to go?
Those, our long-term care insurance business
Yes.
will stay with the corporate entity, which will be, in effect, GE Aviation. So as we go forward, GE, as you know it today, at a corporate level, will spin healthcare, will spin power and renewables, will retain aviation, as well as our long-term care insurance operation, in addition to some other liabilities.
What about the people involved? You have, as you said, you're going to have 3 separate boards when you get done with all of this.
Right.
You have 3 separate CEOs, which is understandable. What are you going to be doing in all this?
Well, when we get through the next couple of days and rolling this out, we're all going to get back to work. As we take the first step, David, I will become the non-executive chair of the healthcare business. Really looking forward to welcoming Pete Arduini, who will be the new CEO of GE Healthcare first of the year. We take the second step, we'll move the business out of GE, and I'll stay with the business and lead the aviation-focused GE on a go-forward basis.
You have an executive there that you brought in, very high profile, very able one. I know you have a lot of respect for him. Is there enough there for the 2 of you to do?
There's plenty for us to do today, tomorrow, over the next 2 years as we get ready for GE as this aviation-focused business. John Slattery was a terrific hire for us last summer. We're thrilled with the job that he's doing. John will continue to be the CEO of GE Aviation, and I'll lead from the corporate perch.
One of the questions that people are very pressed about around here, particularly ones in Boston, are what happens to corporate headquarters? I mean, there was a big move to Boston. What happens with corporate headquarters? Where will these 3 companies be headquartered?
David, my office will continue to be in Boston for the foreseeable future. In terms of headquarter locations for the 3 discrete businesses, that's another decision that has not been taken just yet.
One of the issues that comes up in these corporate structurings is multiples, because you have multiple lines of business and they tend to trade at different levels of multiples. I know you're not a big fan of looking at it that way, but it is one way that the street does look at it. You had different multiples. How much of that was a factor in, either directly or indirectly, because multiples reflect something else?
Sure. Well, I don't think that this is a decision taken at all by the board's desire to chase a multiple here or there. But we do know that we're underowned, right? Investors who are keen to invest in aviation, in healthcare, and energy are underinvested in GE today, despite the leadership positions we enjoy in those 3 markets. So I think over time, we get that type of ownership. The valuations of the businesses will take care of themselves.
So I want you to get a little philosophical with me here, if you would. Number one, could somebody from inside GE have done this deal, or was it helpful to you that you came? I mean, I know you were on the board before, but still, you were a Danaher. You were not a GE person. Could somebody who'd spent their entire career at GE have made this decision? Because it's painful for some people at GE, I assume, because it's a very different conception of the company.
Well, I'm a GE person, David, today, sitting here. I think this was a decision that was a complicated one, but not one I made alone, right? I think a lot of people, both in the boardroom and amongst the management team, came together looking forward, not backward, and concluded this was the best way for these businesses to move forward in 2021.
So just the 2 of us talking, because nobody's paying attention right now. When you came in a little over 3.5 years ago, GE was a fixer-upper, I think it's fair to say. It was a struggling company. At least that's the way many people on the outside perceived it. Did you always have this in the back of your mind, if not as plan A, as one of the plans you were thinking about?
I wouldn't say that we really had a long-term plan back in the fall of 2018, beyond fixing the balance sheet, again, this deleveraging that we're well along with, as well as getting back to basics operationally. We knew we needed to do a better job day in, day out with the businesses. If we took care of those 2 priorities, we knew we would have strategic options down the road. And I guess you could say today we're down that road a bit, and hence the announcement we made this morning.
In part because you needed the cash. You needed to reduce the debt level, and you got some cash out of GCAS and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. And part of what we're announcing today is that as we move forward, all three of these businesses will be investment grade rated companies. The rating agencies have come out here this morning and confirmed that. The meetings we had with them recently, I think, were quite positive, reinforcing the view this is the best way for these businesses to go forward.
Okay, now the navel-gazing part of the interview that we always do in financial television, right? Which is the future of conglomerates. I mean, I must say, just from my experience, I've seen it, and it goes up and it goes down over time. The hot new thing, we all want to be a conglomerate, and then nobody wants to be a conglomerate. Does this say anything more generally about putting together different lines of business in a large corporation?
David, I'm going to leave that question to my colleagues at the Harvard Business School and others. It's ultimately about performance, right? I've been in companies where we did a number of things under one roof, so I've seen it from a number of different angles. But ultimately, it's all about looking forward and being in a position to perform. And I think for GE today, on three separate bottoms, we'll be at our best.
You can't sit here today and know exactly what it's going to look like in 3 years, because there are all sorts of things that are unexpected in the development, and I respect that. But overall, do you have a hunch about the size of the employee base at this new company and the three companies? Will it go up? Will it go down? Do you think it's going to be about the same?
Well, I think we're going to grow from here. So even while we continue to drive productivity improvements, I'd be surprised if we didn't have a bigger team on the field 3 years from now.